Hey everyone, welcome. I'm so excited to be here today with Reese, and we're mixing it up a little bit today because I love, Reese's presence when she shows up. She's so excited, and she'll have like a topic in mind, and I could just talk about it forever. I wanted to like bring that energy too today and just share, how excited I am for this new year. We're recording. This is our first recording of 2025, and one of the things that's like kind of on my mind is I love science. I love sharing it. I love talking about it. I love learning about it in the SFI method, and in the beautiful community that I found here with Reese. But there's so many like things that knowing the science and having studied it for so long, so many things that I do in my day to day that I never talk about. And I think this would be a fun time to talk about the science a little bit, get ourselves situated into how things work, why it's important to focus on these things, and kind of center them in our lives, and then share a little bit from our real life about how me and how Reese really do practice what we preach. We walk the walk when it comes to all these topics in ways that are kind of, maybe surprising, but make total sense and really work for us. So yeah, so I'm so excited. Yay.
Yay! I'm so excited for us to have this conversation, and I love the topic that you brought up. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I think going into this year, I want to talk about because it's like some of the recent conversations we've had in our community. People are really excited for this year. They're picking up all these tools. They're ready to go with their businesses, with their life. There's this question of, okay, like things are feeling good. I'm getting going. I can anticipate that life is going to be a roller coaster, right? And I want to make sure that these tools are working for me, that everything that I've learned has worked for me through the ups, through the downs, like all the times in between, and kind of like just getting into that mindset of, we can center ourselves and focus and use these tools in the good times, and then also in the times when we really need it, right? And to really show up for ourselves. So one of the things I want to share is, of course, like there's so many amazing resources on this channel. We talk about like how EFT reduces our cortisol release. We talk about brainwave modulation with some of the techniques. One of the things that we mention too sometimes is every now and then like real life things you can do. So we say, to make sure you're getting enough sleep, 7 to 9 hours a night, that you're, eating a balanced diet, you're exercising, you're getting sunlight, things like that. I want to start off by just talking about something we don't talk about as much or haven't as much on the channel yet. But there's more and more research on this concept of inflammation, and how it's related to our nervous system, and how having these tools to help regulate ourselves makes such an impact on our immune system. We talk about this in the supply method, especially at the master level. But here it's just kind of a new topic to the channel. So I just want to just bring that up as something that comes up as a question a lot, where we can just share that yes, inflammation is a really amazing observation our community's made. Our body has this natural defense system where we've got these sort of signaling molecules. They're called anti-inflammatory cytokines, and our body releases them when it's trying to heal or fight off an infection, right? So if we're sick, if we have an injury, but also if we're stressed. And when things happen, if we're anticipating stress that's causing our body actual stress, if we don't do anything about it, we sort of let it linger, it becomes chronic stress, and it builds up something that we call allostatic load, which is essentially kind of like our capacity to withstand stress is kind of at its like peak, right? It's at its limit, and we kind of live in that place. And when we do that, it creates this waterfall effect that we want to try to spiral up from, right? And so that's a lot of what we teach, in the SPI method, but that is a very real thing. It's been coming up a lot in questions. And yeah, so techniques that we teach and things we're going to talk about today as well can really help with not needing to have that inflammation in our body to protect ourselves, because there's other things you can do to prevent that from really affecting you. So when in general, you've got this connection to the techniques that we teach, you feel this sense of positivity for your life. You're anticipating good things happening in your life because of the tools that are happening for you and working for you. You start to have a completely different sense of how you're handling stress, and your body will respond totally differently. This helps us in lots of ways. So of course it regulates your nervous system, but it also makes it easier for you to do more and more things over time because it increases your neuroplasticity. So, I don't want to get too much more sciencey than that. We have an article actually in Eating Well magazine that Reese and I contributed to, where we do talk about brain health and BDNF and things that you can do when it comes to like eating to help build your neuroplasticity. But definitely check that out. Check out other videos on this channel, and just know that we, have that wealth of resources available to you in the SFI method and then here on this channel as well. So with that being said, like, of course, Reese, if you want, we could chat, like, if you have questions, because it comes up all the time with our community. But I would love to spend some time, like, really just kind of, I don't know, sharing back and forth with each other how we really walk the walk with, like, keeping the faith, whatever that means to you or me or us, right? Staying in that positive mindset, staying in that place of like expecting miracles, expecting positive things for our lives. So yeah, I'll turn it to you and see if you want to share anything personal or if you have a question. We can chat about it.
Oh my gosh. I love everything that you just shared. And on the topic of inflammation, on the social medias, we see this term of cortisol face. A lot of people are saying, I had cortisol face and then I made the shift. I balanced my hormones, and now I don't have it. So would you say that by managing your stress, which leads to managing and minimizing your inflammation, that would support someone with maybe holding on to weight or having cortisol face?
I could talk about this forever. Yes. This is the
Let's do it.
Inflammation is exactly what it sounds like. It causes you to be inflamed. And so this is something I learned. Keep in mind, I have a research PhD, not a medical degree, but even my friends who are doctors are only really just recently learning how this really affects to how we hold on to. We just talked about the mental sort of emotional side of things. The physical side of things is like even more obvious because you walk into the world and it's very clear when you are completely inflamed. It's very clear how you're showing up in the world, that it's different from when you're not. And so yeah, cortisol face, totally a thing. And it's actual inflammation. Your tissues are actually like stressed and inflamed. And that's part of why you don't want to be constantly stressed, because this does actually break down your tissue. It's not, it breaks down a lot of things that you're going to eventually need. But I will just say too, that if you want to dive down this rabbit hole, there are some people who work on manifestation where they talk about beauty, manifesting beauty. I think that's just like, it's such a cool thing to think about. Whatever beauty means to you, just like whatever spirituality means to you, working with yourself to bring out the beauty that you see or that you want to see using these techniques. There are people that do that. And I think it is super cool. And so I just want to share that. Like, I could talk about it for like a year. It's a real thing.
Oh my gosh. I love that. And we see a huge shifts with our clients that we work on online over a few months, but I definitely remember when I would always do the in-person Yes Supply Method events, someone would walk in at the end of the week and I'd be like, you look different. Like I could recognize the same person, but they look completely different. And it's like, we would just talk about, it must be the energetic shift. This must be releasing a bunch of negative emotions or limiting beliefs or stepping into a new identity. But I totally agree that like those emotional shifts can support a physical shift too.
Yeah.
Another thing that I've seen is what's interesting if someone's on like a weight loss journey or a fitness journey is how, and let me know if you know anything about this, but how when we eat something, it's not just about the food, right? So if someone's like counting macros or saying, I'm going to eat carbs, or I'm going to eat fat, or I'm going to blah, blah, blah. It's not just about the food you're putting into your mouth. It's how your body is releasing the chemicals to break down that food to decide like how fast you metabolize it and what you store as fat and what, burns off and everything like that. And I believe, I'm not going to, I'll look for it. Maybe I'll post it below, or maybe you know about it, but they did something where they would tell people certain things and then give them the same food. And certain people who were told certain things broke down like the junk food or whatever differently because of what they thought about what they were eating.
Wow.
Right? So I'm willing to bet that if you think differently about food or you think differently about your life, it's not just about counting the macros or whatever. It's how is your body processing that? I'm sure if you're less inflamed, you're going to process a lot more than if you're stressed and in fight or flight when you're eating as well.
Yeah, honestly, Reese, that's very like a lot of research is coming to mind that's related. You know how strict I am, and I'm sure the viewers do too. So
Yeah.
it's always like, and I think more and more it'll be fun to drop to some of the studies down because when we're speaking, I'm, speaking from the heart a lot of times, and we're speaking from our minds, but there's literally like 10 studies flying around that we're like thinking about
Yeah.
just trying to convey. And I think that's a beautiful thing to bring that, through. But yeah, so of course, like with everything, you're going to want to like double check it. But I do,
I'm going to try to double
that's
check it.
100% sensible to me. And again, keep in mind that my expertise is more in like the psychological impacts. I do know that there is evidence to support, the idea that if you are stressed, for example, and your body truly feels that there is like an immediate threat, or for example, if you are stressed and you're not eating, right, your body's going to start holding on to food and storing it differently because it thinks it might need it because maybe you're stressed because food isn't a resource that's available to you at the moment,
Right.
right? These are evolutionarily like rooted psychological responses. So I 100% yeah want to just say definitely if that's something you're interested, always go to Google Scholar, check out peer-reviewed research. There's a lot out there. And one other thing that comes to mind, okay, just real quick to speak to it's turned me into a believer reading this research because it really speaks to the speed at which things can change. So if you're holding on to weight that feels very stubborn, and I know we're focusing on this, at least for me, that's because that's an area of focus in my life right now, releasing some weight. I've had a lot of success with it in the past year. I was shocked to find that if it is inflammation related, it's very different process than actually breaking down fat. That's something that truly in a matter of a couple of weeks, I could see like a huge shift because it wasn't related to fat. It was related to retaining water and being inflamed, right? And so I noticed like now in particular, I just came back from the holiday season. I haven't been doing my supplements or my all the stuff, which is like my personal routine. I haven't been keeping it up and I feel the difference, right? And so rather than, you know, how I would have reacted in the past, which is feeling kind of like down or maybe on myself, I'm thinking, okay, I've got tools available to me. A lot of them are psychological and I'm just going to start up with them again, show myself that compassion. But the speed at which you see changes is incredible. So I know we
Yeah.
kind of went into that rabbit hole a little bit, but
I love that. I love
yeah.
that. I was just talking about that on my live too when after having my two babies, I was between like 206 to 210 pounds for a long time. And then I had this moment where I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to wear my old clothes again. I don't want to go shopping and buy all new clothes. I'm ready to wear my old clothes again. And so I just remembered that old, identity of how I looked and the body I used to have. And I set the intention that that was me. And I didn't hate on my body when it was still at 206 or 200 pounds. I love my body. And I was like, thank you for bringing these two cute little beautiful humans into my life and what it did for me, especially, I was able to have my kids completely unmedicated. So I was so grateful and I loved my body. And I wasn't, some people, which I wish I could obliterate this from the planet, but some people are like, when I lose the last 10 pounds, then I'll start the business. When I lose the last 10 pounds, then I'll start. And I just kept making videos and doing the things at all the different pounds. And then without even going to the gym, just changing my mindset, moving through the day, walking with the stroller and throwing my kids up in the air because they're boys and they love that type of thing. I got down to 140 pounds.
That is like, it's just one of those things, like as you say it, this is kind of the core of like the energy that I was in when we came together today. It's like this idea of being grateful for what we have
Yes, I agree.
and like while also holding this vision. And I think that's a skill that you and I, like we've really like, I've seen it in you and I've definitely modeled it. I've had a part of that in me as well. But I think, yes, if I really brought it out, and seeing it around me every single day. And if you're watching this, I hope you feel that too. Like this is a resource for you to come here and be in the energy that's on this channel of like that being grateful. And it's
Yeah,
okay to be both, right?
having your vision.
Yeah. And I think,
Yeah,
yeah, we don't talk about that very much I don't know, I feel like in this like realm, but it's something I see you do all the time. And
yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I get so many messages from students in the certification, from Yes, It's Your students who are like, I was doing the emotional. Some people are focused on weight loss and they lose the weight, but some people are just focused on shifting their emotions. They're like, I just lost 10 pounds without even trying. Because the 10 pounds was the emotional eating. Like if you're eating because of an emotion, instead of eating because of the emotion, process the emotion and then eat what you want to eat or when you're when you're hungry.
Yeah.
instead of eating because you're bored or eating because you're sad. Nothing wrong with eating, but
Yeah.
eating because you're angry doesn't really stop the
Yeah.
anger
Yeah, it's true. And
for
that's
a
the
long
thing.
time.
And truly, like, and it brings me kind of back to the idea that I had jumping in as well, where it's like, when you look at the research of why having this kind of mindset extends your life, and that is, a research supported claim, right? And why it gives you a better quality of life. It's because a lot of the times you do have things to turn to that are better serving for you. So we're always, I think, as a species, really good at finding ways to cope. Like our behaviors are very much like predictable, I think, as humans. And I feel like some of us, it's as easy as making that switch or as hard as making a switch. I want to validate that as well, because sometimes that feels like the hardest step
It's
is
hard.
finding
Yeah.
what it is that you're holding on to that's not serving you. And then kind of switching it up and finding, okay, if I've been doing one thing and I do this other thing, can it replace that for me? And can it fulfill that for me so that I can now live the life that I want to live? And that's when you look at the research, when they try to break down these concepts, right? These high level concepts, those are things that they find, this like sense of gratitude, the sense of purpose, and also a sense of community, feeling like you can come to a place where at least you're accepted, if not also belonging with people who have similar, stances on things and can support you in those moments. So I feel like all of this is really helpful. I'm probably going to go back and watch this video throughout the year, like to, remind myself sometimes, like it's, easy to hold that positive mindset when things are positive, but,
Yeah.
sometimes we need
True.
that little boost. And that's when the tools really,
True.
really, they're preventative, but also very helpful in the moment to lift you up a little bit.
You're
So
right. And it's like you were saying before, having faith before it's showing in your external circumstances. Because
yeah,
if it's already showing in your external circumstances, then it's not faith. It's just
yeah,
reality. It's like trusting that vision, that experience that you hold in your mind, you want it for a good reason, you deserve it. So it's going to show up inevitably, and then believing and acting and feeling in alignment with that.
yeah. And see, hearing you say it, it's like I hear it for the first time because it's new every time, right? Like I feel like that concept, it makes sense to me, like intellectually, and then it's like when you put it into practice, it's really, really deep. So I really hope, like, if you're watching, like if I feel like a really good shift. So thank you, Reese, and
Yeah, thank you.
yeah,
I love this topic. Any last things that you want to share or talk about before we hop off for today?
yeah. I was gonna say before we go, like, I have a question for you, and then maybe I'll share a little bit too. Do you want to share like one thing you're doing right now, like for any of this stuff? Like, even if it's weird, like I'll share a weird thing, about my car I shared with you before. But
Yeah.
anything you want to share with the people watching?
Yeah. Well, I'm currently in the midst of moving from Canada to Florida. So this whole thing is a process of holding the faith, because even though we're, putting in the steps to work on the visa, the outcome is in the hands of, someone outside of me. And so I just have to the faith and make the investments and just hold the vision of a beautiful life in Florida, because I know that this is where we want to be, right?
Yeah.
And so this workbook, the Yes It's Yours workbook,
Yes.
helps me getting clear on the vision. And we already have a life here. Like I'm not saying we'll wait until this and that before getting started. It's like I have my kids signed up for hockey and gymnastics, like all the things. Like we already have started our life here. So yeah, it's just like having faith and keeping going and trying to stay positive.
I
Yeah.
love that. And it's really wild because, yeah, I moved from Florida and like I miss it. And I'm excited
Yeah.
here. Well, we still live there,
I'm
like, a little
back.
bit. Yeah, it's that's really, yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Reese. It's really inspiring. And I think, like, what a great way to start the year. It's incredible. And if we want, like, before popping off too, I just want to share for anyone who's watching, like, if you're in a place where,
What's your weird thing you're gonna share?
yeah,
I
yeah,
want to hear.
that was so deep. Mine was
I
but
want to know.
it's all deep, when you bring it back. And that's
Yeah.
the thing is, like, for anyone who's watching, like, sometimes we do feel like we're at step zero, right? And it's like, what is step zero? And I think Yesify is such a great place. We've got all the tools to get started, but sometimes, like, if you feel like you're in a place where it's like, what's the first thing or the next thing I can do? I just want to share, like, for me, one thing I've noticed is that, like, sitting in gratitude, it's one thing to say thank you and journal and all the things that I constantly do, I keep asking myself, how can I be, even be more active in my gratitude? And it's little weird things. Like I was telling Reese, so one is like, if I notice something pop up where I'm really focusing on what I'm doing, and then all of a sudden I feel like this sense of envy or something, I see someone with like this flashy new car or like all these incredible new clothes. I haven't ever really centered that. And if it triggers me, I just tell myself like, maybe I've been on TikTok or Instagram too much lately. This isn't really me. What am I going to do? I'm going to literally go into my closet. I'm shopping my closet today. And I have like the most beautiful heirloom things, like that nothing from like any other store is going to replace, right? Like I have this like gratitude for that. And then things like, my car, it was a huge manifestation for me. That beautiful like dream car of mine. I never want anyone to take away from that magic that I still feel from it, just because they're rolling around in a new car that I don't even like necessarily, but
Yes,
it's just that it's new, right? And I go in and what do? I clean my car, I take care of it, I make sure it's got its oil change going, all that stuff. These are little ways where every single day, like I can practice gratitude actively, and I see a shift where I don't feel that same trigger anymore. So I just want to share that, like, there's little things you can do. Those are weird little things I'm doing literally today, for myself. And it's all inspired by a lot of what we learn here and teach here together in the SFI method.
I love that. Yeah. And I have I could tell like a million stories where I totally agree with that. Maybe not a million, maybe like 5, but a bunch of stories where I can agree with that. And I believe that must be like a law or a foundation. It's like, if you want the next thing, you kind of have to prove that you can take care of the current thing.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think about like when I worked at my 9 to 5, dreaming of having something in guest supply, but if somebody plopped it in my lap, I wouldn't have been able to do it all until I grew into that person.
Yeah.
And like took on that identity.
See, that's like, can I say one more quote, Reese?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Like you just brought up a memory for me. And I think also because I'm thinking of Miami, but growing up in Miami, it was like very humble. And we lived with my great grandparents for a while in Miami Beach. That's where like I grew up. And we would go on walks together, me and my great grandmother, and she would always pick up the pennies. And she would always say that, if you don't pick up the penny, why would the universe send you $1? Right. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's so true. And I think about that every single time a little thing of gratitude like kind of whizzes past my eyes. I'm like, I need to be really, really grateful for this. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that, why would the universe send more? But also just like, there's someone else who's asking for this and I have it. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's just like, there's this sense of gratitude that you can find in the littlest mundane things. So thank you for inspiring me, Reese. I'm watching this video again.
Thank you for inspiring me and also bringing the science, because I think that really helps us back all of our beliefs in it.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So it's not woo woo. It's science.
Yeah. A lot of it's logical from my perspective.
And logical too. Yeah.
Yeah. Or people will say it's like, woo woo, but I'll see it as logical. So it's funny. It's just the way you kind of look at it, I think.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, this was a beautiful conversation. So thank you so much. So having faith in the unseen and inflammation, fun topics today. So I really appreciate your time and putting together your notes for today. And I'll see you in the next one.
Amazing. See you soon, Reese.